Lisa, can you hear us? Okay, good, thank you.
Ready?
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you a little earlier. You sounded like you were just talking among yourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, we just unmuted. I think we're ready to go. Go ahead and call the meeting to order with all who wish to join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up, we have the agenda adjustment, adding item 6BI, OMS Chestine request, and I would also add an item 14.5, if you will, between 14 and 15, executive session under 1 MRSA 4056A superintendent contract. Is there a second for those adjustments?
I will second.
Any other proposed adjustments? All those in favor? Passes 5-0. Next up, we come to consideration of minutes. I would make a motion to approve the minutes of March 11th, 2025 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? All those in favor? Passes. I didn't see, did you vote no? Yeah, okay, passes 5-0. Warrants, I would make a motion to approve regular warrant 19, payroll warrant 19, and adjustment 18, 1 and 2. Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Passes 5-0. The floor is open for public comment. Anybody who wishes to may make a comment at this point or at the very end of the meeting. Please don't directly comment on employees, and positive or negative. And please don't take a long time, but the floor is open for comment if anybody would like to make a comment. Seeing no comment, we'll go ahead and move on to acknowledgements. Jake?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Don't think I have anything either. Kevin?
Nothing at this time.
No?
Mr. Caballero, and he put on a really great strings concert. See all the grades together.
Great. Mark?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Connor?
Nothing at this time.
Meredith?
I have a few. First, in addition to the strings concert, want to acknowledge our show choir groups. All 3 show choir groups performed Friday night, and congratulations to them for a job well done. And I also want to acknowledge one of our staff members, Jessica Barnes, who is a high school teacher. She teaches art, is a Penobscot County Teacher of the Year semifinalist. So well deserved, and we wish Jessica luck as she moves forward in that process. And finally, I want to recognize our students who attend UTC, who attended the Skills USA concert competition on Friday the 17th, which was just after we last met. We had 9 students attend, and all 9 of them medaled, which is fantastic. And I just want to recognize those students. Callum Bryant placed gold in digital media, Rowan Jackson Sanborn silver in medical terminology, Jack Maloney gold medal in audio radio production, Asia Marzilli, Austin Speck, and Jay Tweedy were all gold in career pathways for business management. Max Newman placed bronze for interactive app and game design. Case Walston won gold for electrical construction wiring, and Sam Wingard placed in the bronze for crime scene investigation. So I don't know the data for sure, but I'm guessing it's a rare feat that all of our students would medal. So congratulations to all of them, and we're going to talk a little bit later in my report about how we can support perhaps students going to nationals. So
Okay.
congrats.
Great. Coming up to reports, we'll start with Asa.
Good evening. It's nice to be here in person with all of you. It doesn't happen all that frequently, so happy to be here. The month of March has been pretty busy, as it usually is at ASA. We had our pre-K and kindergarten registration night on March 11th, and Ms. West did a great job holding down the fort. And Mrs. Higgins dropped in to help out, but a big shout out to our student ambassadors who were there and were giving family tours that they were very excited to be part of. And Mrs. Earhart did a great job prepping them for what that looks like and the places to visit, and they were really excited to be part of that. Also, we mentioned the orchestra concert. We had students do a fantastic job performing in the orchestra concert, followed up by the show choir event. So it was nice to see all of those students and their hard work that they put into preparing to be on stage. And then some of the things that we have upcoming that we're looking forward to will be Snow White and the Seven Endings, which will be the drama production on April 10th. And then also coming up, we have the grades 2 and 3 choral concert on April 16th. So everyone's working hard, getting ready for that. We also have curriculum night that's coming up on April 15th. The theme for this year is the state of Maine. So each grade has a different theme from the state of Maine, and each classroom will be working on different things tied into the curriculum, from writing prompts to other opportunities for parents to visit and see student work and artifacts throughout the building for that evening. And we're hoping to also have some STEM events offered as well. We need to for sure have some math activities coming our way, and hopefully some science ones for that evening as well. The last thing, because you're going to hear a lot from Ms. West and I with our slideshow in a little bit, the last thing that I'll add is that Officer Patterson wrapped up his first year of the DARE program with 5th graders. And they had a great celebration on Friday, March 21st, and he handed out some awards for best essays. The students who received awards for best essays were Landon Barton and Fiora Hope. So we're very excited for them, and excited for this launching or relaunching of DARE that has not been part of the work at ACE in a really long time. I will end there and we'll hear more.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Go ahead and move to the middle school, Richard.
Okay, I want to agree with Gary. It is nice to be here in person tonight. And my report is kind of dedicated tonight to recognizing the students sort of in between our two athletic seasons. So this has already been said, but I wanted to recognize students in our orchestra for at the spring concert here recently. And it was really nice to see the progression of learning and kind of the culmination of when everyone was together on the stage toward the end of the concert. That was nice to hear. And the numbers coming up are really positive. So I'm looking ahead to future years where we're going to have a strong orchestra at the middle and high school based on the numbers at ASA. So good work there. And our show choir performance, same thing. ASA has a lot of participation in show choir, so the future looks good. And we had a small but strong performance for the middle school, and hats off to the high school for a nice job there at the show choir performance. And our test team is here. I'd like to recognize Glenn and Miles, Coach Tripp there for March 8th. They captured the state championship in chess. They also won the Penobscot Valley Middle League Championship earlier in February, I believe. And so a lot of success to our chess team tonight. Thank you for being here tonight. So. And we had more success this past weekend at the individuals. Right? We had, I don't have the result right in front of me, but yeah, we had some strong performance there as well.
We set a team record this weekend, if you don't mind the interruption.
No, please.
Yeah, so Miles here, he actually set the team record for upset. He beat a kid who was several levels rated higher than him. In fact, on paper, it's statistically improbable if you were just matched up. It's about like a 2% chance of it happening. So both Miles is underrated, but also you've made great achievement and stuff like that. This is like you beat a kid you might see at nationals in the tournament of state champions. That's how strong this guy was. Unfortunately, we got second place. Sorry, Miles. We had that part. But yeah, and then we also had 12 kids playing in the individuals tournament that day in high school and middle school. Yeah. And everyone won more than half their games. We had several people medal or getting second and third places in their divisions. Yeah. Didn't have anyone win outright, alas. But it was a really good showing and a tough tournament.
That's fantastic. A lot of success. Well done, Miles. Nice job. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. As far as spring testing, we're looking at the NWA reading and math assessment, the week of April 28th, and the science assessment, 8th grade only, the week of May 12th. So those are coming up, they're ahead, but you know, we're beginning to plan for those. And more student success for me this year. I'm pleased. Orono had a strong tradition in spelling, and the last couple of years we fell short at the Penobscot Valley Middle League Spelling Bee, but not this year. We captured that championship on February 25th. And 8th grader Paul Pelletier won the like the overall speller. So that was nice to see. And on this past Saturday at the National History Day. NHD, it was an academic presentations over at John Baptist High School. Mrs. Hart from OMS took 3 8th graders, Addie Hess, Samara Reedy, and Sophie Kulikowski over to John Baptist for the competition. All 3, they presented academic papers, and all 3 qualified for the state competition on Saturday. And my last thing is our recent art workshops that are co-sponsored, I guess, by Katie Quirk and Julie Anthony. This past week, we're looking at the Cubist tradition and techniques popularized by Pablo Picasso. And so there's some nice work down in the middle school that are hanging up on some of our bulletin boards. I invite you to come down based on the Cubist traditions. They did some nice work in there.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right, high school.
So, in much the same vein as my counterparts on either side of me, ironically, March is a great time of year. A lot of kids and staff are like, oh, March is long, it's cold, we're ready for the spring, it's slowly coming. But like they all both said, there's a lot of celebrations, a lot of things that go on in March, that just really, you know, recognize and, give opportunity to see what our students are doing that we don't always get to see throughout the regular year. So additional to all the things everyone's already said, because certainly those shows and feats were amazing. We also at OHS, our unified basketball team had an amazing end of season event with the 7th annual Courageous Steps Festival. Really a great way to culminate the whole season, and then they have a dinner after, but just a truly amazing sporting event to be a part of and to witness, but just to celebrate all the athletes that and coaches that make that happen every year. So congratulations to them. We've also had a lot of National Honor Society inductions. So congratulations to all the students that have inducted into the National Arts Honor Society, the National Honor Society, and coming up, we're very pleased and excited to have our Tri-M Honor Society back. And so that one's coming up as well as French is also coming up next week. So congratulations to all of our students that have earned that recognition and to be members of those groups. Additionally, we had 4 students that did research their poster session and invited talks at the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium at the University of Maine a couple of weeks back, and those were Roz O'Reilly, Kate Higgins, Noah Schneider, and Saladin Wise, and that's a huge accomplishment for them. We're very, very proud of them and very pleased to have their work and their dedication to their research displayed in such a manner. So congratulations to all of them. And we also want to say, as far as sports, we had a few sports that did wind down other than this unified. Clara White won the Eastern New England, she's the New England champion for the girls Nordic skiing at the Eastern Championship meet. That was a few weeks back. She won the whole thing. She's pretty amazing, a great skier. So congratulations, Clara. Also, Evelyn Titus won an individual New England championship sport and swimming with the 200 fly time, and was a very good representation of Orono at that event. So way to go for her. And our jazz band, so along with show choir and orchestra, our jazz band also competed at the State Instrumental Festival recently and got a bronze, which was a great accomplishment for them. But they tell me that they are going to do better next year. And I said, okay, but it's amazing to listen to them. They're absolutely fantastic. And then I'm trying to see, and then this past weekend, I think for the first time ever, if I remember correctly, our cheerleaders with Coach Gage Duran went to the New Englands and performed there and had earned that right. And while they all say they didn't do as well as they would have wished, it was an amazing experience. And to have the Red Rides there is a huge accomplishment to our cheering program. And that sport takes a lot of work, just like a lot of our other sports and activities do.
So congratulations to them. And then the only other thing I wanted to just say is, that I just wanted to appreciate all the workings together that we're doing to look at all the different remodel options and ways in which to make our school feel safe and be safe for everyone that's here. And so that's taking a lot of time from Derek Sinclair, Dan Patterson, Jason Burgess, myself, Brandon Higgins, many other teammates within the school, just to really continue to talk about what can we do as a team and as a group to make that always be our goal and our focus. So I appreciate all the work that's taken, especially Derek's done a lot in the last couple of weeks, so truly thank you.
And in the spirit of a board report, somebody you'll be hearing a lot more from later. I'm just gonna highlight one piece today that came from a meeting with our 9th grade teachers this afternoon. That Rachel was kind enough to give me a last minute update on the report for. And that has to do with our work on the Solutionaries project. So as you know, you likely already know, our 9th graders have been working with their teachers this semester on applied learning that is problem-based and that allows student focus on the problems that motivate them to drive their work in social studies or parts of their work in social studies, English and science. And this Thursday, our 9th graders are at the point of making elevator pitches about their personal problems or the problems about which they are most passionate to a group of grade level colleagues in an effort to convince their colleagues that their problems are the problems that should be the focus of the group work. And each individual student has to make this elevator pitch, and students will be weighing in after the fact about, which they found most compelling. A sampling of the problems that our 9th graders are focused on right now include the easy accessibility of illegal drugs, whether members of the community are getting enough physical activity, the quality of water in our community, the affordability of athletics equipment and the accessibility of athletic fields, homelessness and abused animals, the fact that potholes are making roads unsafe, the fact that speed bumps have increased pollution and decreased emergency response time. And the lack of public transportation. That the lack of public transportation is a concern by a student who lives in an area where there is no public transportation, where that precludes their ability to participate in after school activities. And so as part of the work in researching their problems, students had to map the stakeholders impacted by their problems. So I included some images of that. But at our next report, I'll look forward to being able to update you about which problems emerged as the problems of focus for our students and how that is directing their work for the rest of the semester.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Go ahead and move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So the first item I want to report on is a request from the OMS chess team. You see some members here tonight to help answer any questions you might have. So the chess team qualified to send some of their teammates to nationals, and at the latest information I have is there are 7 individuals that are planning to attend the national tournament in June, I believe. June?
May.
Okay, May. And it is out of state. National Atlanta.
Oh, Orlando this time.
Sorry, Orlando. Gosh, I need more. I was looking at Richard's thing and I couldn't find those.
Yeah, Nashville was one of the ones we did go in the past though. So
Right, I remember that from the past. And so the group has really been well organized to figure out their travel arrangements and how to get students there, and have Coach Tripp and another 3 parents, I believe, planning to attend. And the request is that we support the trip through paying for the registrations. And that's consistent of how we as a district typically handle support for out-of-state competition. We pay 100% of, those fees and the travel costs for in-state competitions for all activities and such. But when it goes out of state, we do not pay for travel and lodging and all of those things. So, but we do pay for registrations when requested. So the request, it would amount to $700, and there is enough funds for this there are enough funds for this in the co-curricular dues and fees line for the middle school. So, Richard, would you add anything to that?
I think that's it. That's a pretty good summary, right there. And, Ryan, you, provide, a lot of information. Do you have anything that you think that you missed there?
No, that was great. I know it's been a few years. Some of you guys remember the last time I was here and stuff like that, and I've also worked with the kids in the past and such. Eli,
Correct.
and then, because I remember we were really strong his 8th grade year, and we were so close to nationals. We lost by half a point in states.
Wow.
So and we missed Eli that day. And then Emma, distracted.
Right.
Emma distracted. Sorry, I was trying to remember. I'm sorry, distracted. And then of course Emma, she was so good for so long. I wish we brought her to nationals as well. So as you guys remember and stuff like that. This will actually be the first time we have 2 very strong girls going to nationals as well. We haven't had girls on our team that also have been able to make nationals before. So it's a nice change. We'll hope, actually, I know one of them will be state champion for the all-girls tournament in the coming years and stuff like that. It's just a matter of time. They were very close this year, but I had a conflict and stuff.
Is this your 6th time going?
Yes, this is my 6th time going to nationals. There was one year where you can go to nationals regardless, but I always make sure that we win states first.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I have a team that will win the division.
Sure.
So we're playing, when we go, I make sure that I have a team that I believe we can win. We're gonna bring home some hardware.
Yeah.
The last time we went, we were in a top 10 finish. In fact, I think I won it like 4th or 5th for our division. I want to say it was very high. And that's the type of achievement that I like to bring. And so they take our top 4 scores. I have 7 players. So if someone's unfortunately having a bad day, we should be okay. But it's a very grueling tournament. And so one of the other things I make sure is that these guys are prepared emotionally first, because it's 3 days of about 8 hours of chess a day, and then maybe 12 on Saturday. And so by the end of it, they're completely exhausted. I don't want to see burnout and stuff like that. And so getting them prepared all year round, the first thing I've always been saying is make sure you're having fun first, and then we'll get the rest done.
And Ryan, if I could add too, Ryan's been great with hotel and travel, like that sort of thing. We have a great group of parents that are, involved with the team and are very enthusiastic and supportive about going. And we're gonna sit down and talk about, should something like safety intervention be required, we'll be prepared for that. So we're gonna emergency. So those are some of the things we've been discussing.
Great. Any other questions before I make a motion? I would make a motion to authorize the payment of registration fees for the middle school chess team. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations
Congratulations.
and good luck.
Thank you.
So the next item is,
I was
sorry,
gonna say you're
We-
welcome to stay, but you don't have to stay.
you'll know, no pressure to stay.
And I was just like, when Emma was on our team, we were state champions the one year, but then the team was so fractured, and so I couldn't bring them into 2 different divisions. So I don't have that concern this time, although we were a little worried because some of our players are doing so well, we might have had that same situation again. But we did luck out, as it turns out, and so thank you again so much
Good
for your
luck.
time, and I hope to see you guys again really soon, because next year we're looking extremely, really strong, so in
Good.
fact, I would make some preparations to see me again next year. Very,
You're
very likely.
prepared.
I'm only losing Miles this year. I got basically the same gang, so as long as no one gets
Fabulous.
away. Thank you.
I love the passion.
Yeah.
If I get this, no one, I never met anyone who loves chess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he does a really good job
He
of
does.
not just very high quality teams in terms of results, but just a lot of fun for
Yeah.
teams too. So,
Enthusiasm, just
That's
builds
great.
right.
yeah.
So the next item is about the Skills USA students. If you earn gold, the gold medal, the first place finish at state, it qualifies you for nationals. Not everyone who earned gold from our group is planning to attend nationals. We have 3 of the students who are planning to attend. And in talking with UTC, they do some budgetary coverage of the overall cost, which basically gets their chaperones there so that the students have chaperones for this event. And then they do some fundraising throughout the year to offset other costs for students. But it's a significant cost to the student to be able to go. So I propose that we cover the registration cost as we do consistent with other, I'm not sure we've ever been asked to do that. And we haven't had a lot of students go to Skills USA. We've had some, but I think it's noteworthy that we had such a successful year and we have 3 students planning to attend. It's $300 per person, the registration fee. And this would come out of just the OHS miscellaneous line, which you know, I think we'll have some extra funds there from the way things are looking right now.
Any questions for motion? I would make a motion to authorize the payment of the registration fees for the US skill teams attending nationals. Is there a second?
A second?
All those in favor? Passes 5-0.
The students attending are Case Wilson in the electrical realm, Callum Bryant in the digital productions realm, and then Jack Maloney in the audio productions realm. It was something audio something. So those are the 3 students going. Okay, in addition, I just wanted to report, we haven't met since we had our teacher workshop day and the presentation the night before and the presentation the afternoon before for students by Lynn Lyons. And all around, it was a really successful couple of days with Lynn. We had excellent feedback, particularly from the parent community presentation and from the staff presentation. And we're discussing both, you know, among staff that day and then some follow-up conversations, but also in the admin team about next steps to take some of the information that was presented. So, you know, I know I think I saw Brian there and we had just, you know, I guess the turnout at the parent community event was lower than, you know, we had hoped, but we feel like it was a really good start for parent forums of this nature. And we feel like it was positively received by that group and the staff group to the extent that if we have subsequent ones, I think there will be a lot more promotion from all of those stakeholders who experienced it and felt like it was valuable. So want to thank Susan for all of her work to coordinate that event. It was, you know, a lot of planning went into that and thoughtful research around what presenter would bring the right message that we were hoping to have. So it was successful all around. Brian and I have an update on the soccer lights project. So I had mentioned that in the previous meeting that we had the planning board meeting coming up. That was last week. And ultimately the planning board approved the project. There was a stipulation that we plant some a buffer screen of some evergreens for one particular neighbor who was feeling like it would be a you know, a visual impact on their property. That wasn't a neighbor that was impacted against the ordinance for light spill. It was another adjoining neighbor that's in that area, certainly by the soccer field, but was not a neighbor that was going to have the light spill that the ordinance required us to do some different work with those neighbors. You know, I think one of the things that one of the aspects of this project that we're kind of up against, so to speak, is the impact that the hockey lights have on that neighborhood. And, you know, those are older style lights that have no shielding or directional kind of element to them, like the lights we're planning on putting in. And I know that they're not also they're not limited for who can turn them on and how long they can stay on. So I know that's an element that's frustrating to those neighbors. And so I think that was part of the issue that is in people's thinking about these lights. But ultimately, you know, we did get the approval And I know there's still some concern from those neighbors and you know, we're following the advice of the planning and the procedure that the planner has set out for us as to how to proceed. So, Brian, would you add anything to that?
I think you captured most of it. It's probably worth noting that a couple of people who were not light impacted, but were technically abutters because they had property that next to the school also showed up at the town council meeting after the planning board meeting. You know, as a legal process, my understanding is this pretty much a done deal at this point, but I just raise that because you may still hear something. It's probably worth noting it's 2 or 3 specific households and they're below the 1/10 of a candle, light candle, which is very, very dark. So, you know, anyway, we've done a lot of due diligence for the neighbors who were in the light spill area. Well, you've heard that back and forth. So there's been a ton of negotiation with those neighbors. So you may still hear something about that. Yeah, no.
Okay, so if people are upset about the hockey lights, I mean, is there anything we could do with those?
They're not our lights. They belong to the
town.
town. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing I would say is I did hear quite a bit about our high school parking lot lights, which I had not heard before. And I think they're far enough from anybody's property that they didn't necessarily have a lot of zoning restrictions, but that's something I think as we go forward that we want to think about if there's some turning off of lights or some more directed lights as we replace light bulbs or something. I think that's something that would be worth our trying to pay attention to, but
We regularly have kids coming home, particularly in the fall and spring sports seasons, well after dark. I'd be pretty reluctant to turn those lights down or turn them off.
well, I wouldn't turn them off. I think, do you know, Derek, are they on all night?
They are on all night.
Yeah,
That's
I
part of the
think-
issue. And I think maybe we could do some kind of sensors or timers after
Yeah.
a certain hour because they are really bright, which it went from one extreme to the other because before the project, it was really dark and not altogether safe for watching where you're stepping with, you know, conditions in the winter, but also just not well lit for other safety reasons. But I've heard it a couple of times outside of this project. And so I do think it's worth exploring if there's a way to put them on some kind of, if there's a sensor setting that we could have after a certain hour. But I don't know that they're that kind of light, so.
This is significantly better than,
Oh, it
I would
was
not want to
terrible
go back to
before.
that situation.
Right,
Yeah, nobody's talking about turning
sure.
them off, but on the other hand, we probably don't need every light on at 3 AM. Which they are currently, so.
Anything else about soccer lights? So the last item I had on the report is, I wanted to fill you in on the COPS grant and where we are on that, because we've been working diligently for, I don't know, months, trying to get the right information back from vendors on the projects that we wanted to do. And compared to when the grant was submitted and now prices have changed. And also, you know, as we've looked at needs, kind of our prioritization has had to be examined a bit. And so we're at the point where at 4:30 today, we got the quote we were waiting on. I was hoping to get it earlier. And I put those in a folder for you in the drive. But there's one page that kind of summarizes everything that's printed in your board packet. It's just it's at the top, it says official R226 COPS grant budget. So this page shows the priority. Do you see it, Noah? It looks like it's a table, a spreadsheet table. Yeah, no, that's not it. That's
It
a
was on the
different one.
left side, it was separate from the other. It's just,
This lists the projects that we are proposing, we have in the grant, and what we have to do is do a budget amendment with the Just Grants people at the federal government to adjust our budget, which our grant consultant says happens all the time and should not be an issue. And all of this is well aligned with the goals of the project. So one of the things that we learned right away is that our emergency alert system that we wanted to have a really important part of that is integration with the PA system, and our PA system is really problematic for integrating with much of anything because it's quite old and doesn't play well with other systems. And so we have shifted to including that PA replacement as part of this project because that's a really important part of our safety response ability as well. So the first item on this list that you see it is emergency alert / PA system. We looked at several options, some of which were separate systems, a PA system, and emergency alert system separate, but that would talk to one another. And there was one system we looked at that was an integrated, it does both. And that's what we're recommending that we go with for cost reasons and for just, we in the end liked it best. One of my priorities in the emergency alert system is that it was a system that would actually have the best chance of people having on them all the time, because it's the kind of system that someone can wear, a wearable device. It's not the system that Bangor has, but it's similar in terms of what the wearable device looks like. It's something that can be integrated with your badge, kind of lanyard holder. And so that the emergency alert PA system is through a company called Audio Enhancements. And so that is, you know, a third of the grant, almost $300,000 for that feature. It does a lot of other things with, you know, sending out messages over all the screens in the school. It does alerts over the PA. So it has a lot of features. It does, you know, communication with law enforcement. So it's a very, it has all the features that we were looking for. All of the systems we looked at had kind of, you know, a subset of the features, and this was probably the one that had everything wrapped up in one. The access controls is another big part, and that's the system that automates our doors to be locked or unlocked and have the card readers on them. So that's what access controls is. And so it's an expansion of our access controls to have more exterior doors have that auto lock on a timer and be able to also have that push a button and everything is locked down kind of feature. It's not every exterior door yet, but we're making significant progress to all of the doors that people come in and out of pretty regularly. In addition, like right now we just have, I think, three sets on that. So it'll really expand to other doors that are used for, you know, egress during the day, like not classroom back doors is what's being left out at this point. And then some other, like gyms have multiple doors. We're not doing every door in the gym with an access control, just one. And so that's what the access control expansion is. The video camera expansion, we really had to scope this down, and we felt like that was the place that was best to scope down because we already have fairly good coverage of our campus, and this adds some pieces where we feel like we have some gaps right now. But we also feel like this is a system that's easier for us to add pieces on incrementally over time in smaller chunks. And so we feel like that's the place to cut when we had to make the budget work. The door replacement and rekeying is an important part because we have some doors. I was thinking when I was unlocking the library door tonight, this is a really old and difficult door. We have a lot of those around the district. And so replacing, I don't think 18 is the right number. 8 sets of doors. So for example, the doors that have been really problematic at ASA down that lead from the 1st, 2nd grade wing out to the playground, the doors at the 5th grade end of ASA, the doors at the gym entrance, the doors out of the side of the gym that go to the red garage, the doors down at the middle school that go out to the parking lot, you know, Richard does the one. Anyway, the doors that are just problematic. So in addition to that, one of the things that our SRO and the police department helped us really see needed to be prioritized is the interior keying of this building is a nightmare for emergency response because it's like, you know, which key goes to which door. and there's so many different keys. So doing an interior rekeying became a priority for this project to have more of a master system that in an emergency, a first responders not having to try 10 keys to figure out which one, and it's probably 10 is probably a low estimate, which one is installed. The generator is another piece that we're paying the final piece on through this grant. It's the control module that had to be, we had to wait on that piece for the ASA generator, so that's in this grant. And then lockdown buttons to have, those, you know, one button in key locations around the district to lock down all doors. And then a battery backup, more battery backups for our systems where we don't have the generator. So that all adds up to 667. Our grant is for 666,208. So there's a small gap that I think we would just cover through capital improvement. Our match is $552. That was included with this year's capital improvement budget, the current year we're in. So we already have that money set aside for this project. And then we have the federal grant. So what I'm really wanting you to understand is how we've made priorities in the grant. I was really hoping we could fit in the full system generator for this building. It just doesn't fit. I think that's just gonna have to be for another year. It really needs to happen though, soonish. And the other pieces, we just feel like we can integrate them in small bits over time, like the exterior rekeying and more doors that need to be replaced and a few more cameras over time. But we feel like we've really, if we can make all this happen, it will be a major improvement for this campus. The kind of the worry in the back of my head is $500,000 of this is federal, right? So, right now, the grant funds are open. And I think we should try to use them right away, but it would be a project that we would be doing and planning for the summer to wrap it up, hopefully by the end of summer. So there's a little bit of risk with that as well. It's a reimbursement model. So you know, spend the money, reimburse. Once we get started, as we incur costs, I think Lynn's on the call, and I'm not sure we know this part yet, if the reimbursement cycles are quarterly or monthly that we can file for reimbursement along the way. So I think what we would probably do is choose a chunk that we could maybe get billed right away and do a test reimbursement to see if everything goes through smoothly. So these contracts are of the amount that really the board would need to approve these contracts with these vendors. We did get multiple bids for everything except the doors. The doors have one bid. We have one vendor we've been working with for a long time, and it's really hard to get bids on those particular items. Everything else has multiple bids.
What's that? What agency? USGS?
This is under the Department of Justice. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to predict, but could there be a freeze on things? Yes. Are they actually going to permanently shut off funding for school safety from shootings? I don't think so. And we do have reserves always talked about, so I wouldn't be super hesitant if it's frozen for 90 days and we have to wait. If it's frozen for 90 days and we have to wait, we can do that, but certainly it's a risk I'd be more than happy to take.
Same. It is unfortunate that public policy results in the schools having to foot the bill for school hardening. I do think it's worth saying that there's a possible society where we don't have to create backup power systems and auto lock doors and PA systems attached to lanyards in the event of violent attack on children. So it is unfortunate, however, the case that we are in the situation. But I do support protecting students and staff, of course, faculty.
So are we gonna vote next meeting on the contracts or?
I think we can. I mean, I didn't get the last one until 4:30, and I feel like you need to have a chance to look at them. But I feel like this advance notice kind of gives you some context to look over those and let me know if you have any questions. And Derek and Jason have been highly involved with the quote process too, so I'd probably ask them to answer most of the questions.
Okay, any other questions for now?
I guess one question, do you support kind of the focus that we've chosen for this? Because we're gonna go ahead and do the budget amendment that's required, so that part is done. Any concerns about the priorities we've set for these projects?
Made sense to me.
Right. That's all for my report.
All right, next up, Case Adams presentation.
I'm going to drive from my screen. I did put a PDF of their presentation in your folder if you'd like to follow along that way.
It's gonna be on the big screen. Right, so in putting together our presentation for you tonight, there were quite a few people that helped us gather some data and information for our presentation. So some acknowledgements to Melissa Barton, Eric Blacksmith, Jill Connolly, Lisa Sear, Lisa Earhart, Angie McLaughlin, Sam Runco, and Susan Smith. I will also add Madeline West as she, with her graphic design eye and her love for data, did a lot of the heavy lifting to put a lot of this together, especially in some of my absences recently. So thank you very much. So some of the things that we're going to cover with you today.
I don't know how you advance. Okay, there we go.
Okay. Some basic demographics, student attendance data, student support services, some mental health and behavioral information, some stuff around school culture and our future considerations. However, one of the things that I really want to remind all of us is that this is a story, right? This is a story of our school community where 67 adults come to work every day and 338 students come to school each day. And we come there with the focus of providing the best possible learning experiences for them. And through that, we're looking at our care and concern for each individual child. We're looking at it from a lens of justice in terms of making sure we're serving each child and giving them what they need to move forward in their education. And that we also bring a critical lens to the work that we do, and that we're always looking to see how we can improve either the resources that we're using or the staff works hard to improve their own craft and skill. So when we look at all of these numbers, there's a lot of faces that go along with these numbers. That's important to remember. So this photo here.
Oh, sorry.
And Ms. West picked out some of these photos, so she has a little story for you about
Yeah,
this photo.
this is actually in one of our first grade classrooms. It's something that we have done in the past, some co-teaching with some of our specialists. So we have the SLP and the OT doing some co-teaching in the classroom to bring some SEL growth, both, your self-management and your self-awareness. So it was a pretty powerful thing that they were all pretty excited to do. Call it SPOT, speech and OT, and all the kids are very excited to have that time. So.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
This slide, probably not very surprising to anyone with the breakdown of ethnicity. There seems to be just a small increase in our Asian population this school year compared to last, but generally speaking, everything is pretty similar to where it's been in the past. Gender, again, a pretty even breakdown with the exception of our 5th grade class. Richard will be receiving a lot more sixth grade girls than boys. Yes. So this slide always surprises me a little bit to see the percentage of students who are considered economically disadvantaged. And this is from the self-reporting information that parents report at the beginning of each school year. And then IEPs by grade level, again, about a quarter of our population all have individualized education plans. So this is where we did a little cross-section in looking at students that meet multiple categories. So that first graph that you're looking at is really showing us that about 10% of our population are both considered economically disadvantaged and have individual educational plans. So they kind of have two areas that, you know, might be considered challenges for them in their learning. The second graph talks about all types of plans, so including our 504 plans and students with MLL plans. So that really bumps it up to 40% of the population have some type of individualized plan. Student teacher ratios, our third grade is feeling a little full right now. Fifth grade not far behind, but the only difference is fifth grade has 4 classroom teachers, 4 sections, in order to have that number at 17. So a little background on the staff. That first graph you're looking at, we have had an influx of new teachers, which actually feels really good to have some new staff. They certainly bring some exciting new thoughts and ways and just a lot of fun to the building. But balanced with that is that large percentage that you see that have that great level and background and experience, which also is a nice balance as well. And then the piece 19 teachers or ed techs that are continuing their learning and pursuing advanced degrees. And the fact that we have 12 teachers that have student teachers currently, and part of that is courtesy of Ms. West. And do you just want to mention?
I did before, I think at the last board report, that we've got some brand new to the teaching world, who are coming in essentially functioning a lot like high school seniors that are just getting their feet wet. And then we have certainly a number, whether now or in the fall, that are coming in and doing the actual student teaching. So just quite a range. This is one of our Care Buddy groups, 5th grade with pre-K. So it's really quite the range out in the snow. They try to do lots of service types of projects together, letters for veterans, that kind of thing, or you know, they did cards earlier in the year, and they've explored some different topics that have meaning to both levels, and then they also try to have fun.
I don't know if I should keep pushing.
I think you have to click it again to get the
Right.
There you go. There you go. They appear. So chronic absenteeism, which I think sometimes is hard for families to grasp why we're reporting on that. In their minds, they think of the traditional truancy and those kind of absences. However, really chronic absenteeism is missing 10% of the school days. And at the time that we put this together, we were around day 120 of school. So we went with 12 days, a student who's missed 12 days of school for any reason since the start of the school year. So we had 38 total students that fell into that category, but we were wondering, who are those students, right? What more do we know about them? And how is maybe absences connected or impacting other parts of their educational experience? So 6 of those students received some type of academic intervention through the Title I program. or through the What I Need sessions that take place for students in K1 and 2. 6 students had individual education plans or 504 plans. 7 of them fall in that economically disadvantaged category, and then 6 of them had, so they're chronically absent, fall into that low SES bracket, and also have an IEP.
Student support services. This is one of my favorite pictures put in. The kids are actually, it's just great to see, you know, we talk about the computer age and how many times kids really have a screen in front of them, and they were really exploring the idea of going on a trip. And so the teacher had a background using a big screen, had a background of an airport, and then had made boarding passes for all of the kids and laminated them, and they were all pretending to be at an airport. So we had someone on the phone supporting the other students, so. Animations. So our MTSS process, in terms of systems, we have our core team that consists of the 2 of us, as well as our instructional coach and our school counselor. We meet once per week or rotation. So if there are 2 of the same day, we only meet once during the week. And at every time or every time that we meet together, we review data, whether it's attendance data or our behavioral data, Swiss data. We alternate which one we're reviewing. And then we also do plan development that is sometimes at our level, but typically if we're building a new plan or reviewing a plan, we have another meeting where we invite the classroom teacher, who it typically is the one that's brought a concern to us, and the parent, whenever we can get the parent to the table as well. We do that, and that's where we design plans such as a check-in, check-out, which is a daily check-in and check-out with an adult in the building, not typically their classroom teacher, just building connection throughout the building. Sometimes we have alternative lunch options for students that struggle to find success or find joy in the lunchroom where it's pretty busy and less structured. We also have things like classroom behavior plans or breaks that are built into the day. Just it's very individualized.
And there are truly 2 ways that students usually rise to having a plan developed. One is the review of that data, just double checking to make sure there's not someone that we're missing. And as Ms. West said, teachers will refer and often ask us, you know, what do you think is going on? Let's look at the information together and develop that plan.
MTSS.
Multi-tier system of supports. So it used to be, I mean, for a while it was RTI. This is truly different though. RTI is more like we're going to do this thing to help success. MTSS is really for everyone. It's the analogy the state gives is that it's sort of like everyone goes to the dentist. So everyone is part of MTSS, but some may need a higher level of treatment or care. And MTSS is not just students who are maybe needing more support to meet classroom benchmarks, whether behaviorally or academic. It's also looking at students who maybe need some enrichment and extension. So really any student who might benefit from something additional or alternative to what is the typical presentation.
That's the best analogy for MTSS I've ever heard.
Isn't that great? I really felt like it clarified it. I didn't come up with that. You probably have more.
Either there are a lot of layers or
Probably more doodlies popping up. There we go. So in terms of academic interventions, often at those MTSS, you know, there's overlap between some of the students, but we also have another process in place for more academic interventions, and the members of that would be principal, instructional coach, and grade level teachers, and Wendy Pearson, our chapter 104 teacher. The structure for that is every grade level meets as a grade level with that team every 6 weeks. It functions opposite of
or at the same time rather, is our Habits of Mind teaching rotations. So while some of us are teaching habits of mind in classrooms, the classroom teachers will by grade level rotate through and review all the academic data and the progress of all the students and look at plans that are in place, and then also look at what additionally maybe do students need. Just based on the data that they have. Other individualized services, I also put on there the numbers that we had in 2022, 2023, when we
Thought there might be more.
when we had shared the numbers with you then. So McKinney-Vento, our number now is, I would say, roughly what it was in 2022, 2023. I think that's constantly, as the nature of it, it fluctuates. Foster care, it's actually gone up to 2 now since we created the slide. And 23 MLL. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but if you look to where we were 2 years ago, that is a pretty significant jump. And then also in 504s, those plans, we've seen a pretty significant jump, and the 504s are not direct instruction, it's more accommodations that the teachers and the teaching staff are providing for students to help them be successful in their classrooms. And then in terms of our behavioral and SEL MTSS, we have 9 that at some point in the year have had some sort of a plan, an MTSS plan. Some of those have, those students have been referred for an IEP, are still within our process until or unless that changes to an IEP. And then we have a few also that have been in the referral process for 504. ELA and math, this would be through our Title I supports. We have 36 across K through 5 receiving supports and instruction with ELA, and then 25 with math.
So some changes that has come along to chapter 104 from previous, when it was very limited to a certain percentage of the school population should be identified. We've really opened that thinking up to what enrichment can we provide and what acceleration can we provide for varying students. So currently we have 34 students that are receiving some form of enrichment, either through larger group activities during WIN time and more broad topics. We have 12 students actually working with Mrs. Pearson specifically in smaller groups with a targeted focus for acceleration. Then we have 11 students that are both working in advanced and enrichment groups, sometimes in the same subject or in different. And then, of course, our grade 5 math. So Richard will be busy with all of those students that are currently taking 6th grade math. We have 2 classrooms of our 4 participating in 6th grade math.
I should have taken off all the animation. I didn't.
They're nice.
Yes, so here you see our dynamic Title I team in that photo. They're always busy at work, and
That particular day, we try to have fun. And this was during our Read Across America week, and it was dressed as your favorite character. So I bet you can guess what they all are. And they found Waldo in the photocopy room, and I really expressed my distress that they didn't get a picture with Waldo. But I love that they sent me a picture.
so in their program, as they provide intervention, of course, they're constantly reviewing through our progress monitoring meetings. Is the student making progress? Do we need to change the intervention? Do they need to be referred for an IEP or something different? So this year they've had 3 students move on to IEPs. They've had actually 10 students who are currently making grade level progress. So they've moved to a status that we call monitor. because they are currently at benchmark and we just want to make sure they stay at benchmark. And then in K through 2, in the What I Need groups, some of the topics they've been covering, including blending sounds for reading, phonics, fluency instruction, explicit handwriting instruction. But in addition, some STEM and advanced math instruction as well. And so far this year, we've held 11 of our progress monitoring meetings where we're really looking at that classroom data, the intervention data, to see how those students are doing.
Our MLL trends over time, so we mentioned earlier, we mentioned earlier the big growth that we've seen. And the interesting thing is if you look at fall this year versus now, we actually had a little dip in the fall and then really quite an influx. There was one particular day where we had 4 students who spoke no English starting on the same day in 4 different classrooms. So definitely have seen an influx in need there. Mental health and behavior. I love this picture. It just feels very symbolic. And like, look at her persevere, like Lori.
On the new playground.
What's that?
On the new playground.
On the new playground. Yeah, lots of good things in that picture. So, and we'll get into some of it, but just in terms of our mental health needs and behavioral trends, if you want to. So looking at behavioral trends over time, I do want to acknowledge first, there are some variables that we know about. I mean, certainly there's been some teacher turnover, but also, you know, if you're looking at grade 1, for example, over the years, there have been different students in grade 1 over those years. And then certainly different teachers have different individual practices. We have done some norming activities in the past. We're probably due for that now, where we norm some of our behavioral data collection so that we know, you know, if no matter who is collecting the data, it's pretty consistent across data collection. So if you look at it over time, you can kind of see there's a little bit of up and down for sure. There's also prior to COVID, and then there are gap years on that because it didn't feel right to report on those years, given the 6-foot distance. We actually saw far fewer behaviors, figure. But just overall, you can see some grades it sort of maintains the same. So then I looked at year by cohorts. So if you want to scoot ahead to the next, let's see. Looking at grade 5, for example, that's the one that we have the most data on from pre-COVID. And you can see where they started. I think actually when they started, they were in 3 classrooms and they had an ed tech supporting, and then we pulled them into 4 groups. And that could be part of that big dive. But overall, I had some trend lines, but it was too busy to look at. But there is an overall trend over time with the students, as one would hope and expect, that we see fewer behaviors. We do see sometimes sort of an upkick, particularly in 5th grade as new things arise for our 5th grade students. And then mental health diagnoses. So something that's important to note is, you know, there are pieces that this doesn't show. In particular, there are students that meet on a very regular basis with Lisa Earhart, a school counselor, that don't have a formal diagnosis for whatever reason, but are seeking regular mental health intervention. That being said, we have a quarter of our students that do have a mental health diagnosis. And if you look at the total numbers in some of the grades, it ends up being about 1/3 of the grade that has a mental health diagnosis. So it's pretty significant. So then we looked at the how it connected with our IEPs. And so the number on the bottom, that little bottom chunk, is mental health only. And then when you add the green, that is mental health, and they also have an IEP, whether or not that IEP is related to the mental health diagnosis, this doesn't look at. And then the top part is, the no diagnosis and no IEP. Some of the alarming things that the data doesn't show you, these pieces about, we do have suicidal students at an elementary level, which is really alarming to think about. And then, we have students that are receiving some supports, whether it be through an outside program or through our in-house social work services.
Sorry, that's like about a quarter who have diagnoses. Do you have any sense how that compares to 10 years ago?
No, but I think that would be great to get, given that we have a lockbox who's been in that position for a long time. I would be curious about that, and we might be able to pull it. And then you look at, what are the variables in that? And, is it a difference that we're seeing, or is it a difference in the rate of diagnosis? I mean, that's always a question for me too, but I feel, I don't have data to support it, but I feel like we see different kids now than we saw, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would think it would mostly, we probably don't have good records on that from 10 years ago. But more and more, it's been a part of school programming, so we now have those records. Yeah, but at least it would have a sense. I think she's on the Zoom.
She probably is, but I won't put her on the spot. Culture is a big part of us at Asa Adams. And I love this picture because it has, one of our teams, one of our special ed teams, but also this particular day was, I don't even remember who brought it up. We have a lovely custodian who has one of just the most easygoing personalities, and we're always asking him to do something, whether it's cleaning up vomit to putting together furniture. And he, when you ask him how he's doing, he always says, maintaining. So what does he say? Maintaining. He's maintaining. So that became a known thing through our building. Someone had noticed it, and then someone said, we need to make t-shirts. And so we ended up having this maintaining day where we had t-shirts, and people were all wearing their shirt, and we surprised him with it. And it was just lovely. I think he felt really seen. So it's become part of our culture, and really trying to see everyone in our building is pretty important. So.
Sometimes it just doesn't want to advance there.
So student opportunities, we certainly don't have as many events as the high school, but we do have things like the student ambassadors, student council, our drama and show choir productions, and Kids Helping Kids, which is the core program, has students that come down, and we have ASA students that have been nominated, whether by Mrs. Earhart or by a classroom teacher, who benefit from that additional connection and mentoring within our school, which has been a lovely program. And they come down and they do activities with those students. And then we have lots of outside entity things. We have a whole bus full going to skiing, or did every other week. And there are lots of other things going on, and connections and opportunities for students. And then our forced family fun, we've called it, with our staff. And there are lots of things, and I joke about it, and we sort of joke about it, but it means a lot. And if you can laugh together, it makes the hard days that much easier. So we've incorporated lots of co-regulation, typically at the beginning of staff meetings, whether it's me doing it or some of teachers, more that they've been undergoing that PD. They want to come in and they want to lead it, but asking everyone to take that responsible risk and engage in some co-regulation. And then we've tried to theme all of our staff meetings so that we're rotating between to really cover our curriculum and community connections, and then having culture for our staff, which usually is games. So we're a pretty competitive group, as it turns out. And so sometimes we'll have all day games like hiding a turkey in your pocket. We've done that a couple years now, and it's really funny because the kids get in on it and they know who's got the turkey hidden in their pocket. And the adults going up and asking if you have a turkey in your pocket. It's sounds silly and people say elementary school were silly, but it's really about having fun together and laughing. And it's about the prizes. It doesn't even matter if the prize is a ring pop or a gift card to somewhere. They want to win. So that's been really fun. We have a pretty awesome PTO who does regular things with us, which is always very exciting, our coffee cart. We also do games at staff meetings too, which has been great. We recently had scooter hockey, which was pretty fun, but also kind of tricky to man the thing as an adult.
Susan actually has joined in our games and she's been at our staff meeting.
Yes,
You good at scooter hockey?
not at scooter hockey.
The grocery cart thing, Maria.
Yes, that was a turkey game
Yeah.
And
too.
the elf, find the elf.
Yeah, Lisa Sear came down to do a scavenger hunt too. That one was fun because we watched in the video cameras as people were running through the building, doing exactly what we tell students not to do. So, yeah, that was fun. But yeah, just lots of fun, regular things, and then I think that's been pretty important and enjoyable. So I originally didn't intend to put this in, but speaking of competitive, I asked the teachers and staff for some feedback. And I originally wasn't getting a lot of feedback because we need to make some decisions at this point in the year about scheduling for next year. And I then started putting out what percentage of the different groups had replied to the survey, and lo and behold, I have 100% of teaching staff who replied to it. I didn't originally report out the percentage on ed tech, so that's really at 60% for that. So bear that in mind as we're looking at it. But I asked just a few questions, and I asked on a 5-point scale. And for this one, it's the value of teaching HOM. I actually just asked Lisa Earhart to remind me how long we've been doing it. And we originally did our book study, I think she said 2011, 2012 is when we first started that, thinking that we were going to incorporate it. And that year we just did a book study, and the next year we started teaching it. So it's been a long time, and we've definitely had, years where we haven't really focused on it so much. And there's some, I hear scuttle about maybe it's time to change up some things. So one of the things I asked was, how much do people see the value of teaching HOM? The thing of note on this is that no one said they disagree with the value. Not a single person said they disagree or strongly disagree with the value of teaching it. However, when I asked, how about how we teach it? So right now, as I mentioned earlier, we teach rotations opposite classroom teachers. So classroom teachers will do a lesson 1 week, and the next week, there is a group of teachers, including me, that teach rotations of students, and we group them differently. And they have lessons on things like taking a responsible risk and perseverance and all of those habits. And within that, if you look at the entire body of response, it really was, that chunk at the top that felt like it's not really effective the way that we're doing it. And then if you bump over to the next column and you look at the teaching group, there's a core group, but probably more like a third of that group that feel like it's not effective. And then as you look at the ed tech and then the teachers that teach the rotations, there is a much larger group saying, I don't think this is effective the way that we're teaching it. And that wasn't necessarily surprising to me. It's something that we are really brainstorming about, how we're going to change how we teach it. And then enjoyment. This didn't surprise me either, but if you look at the teaching column and the all column, they sort of line up for the who feels like they really enjoy teaching it. And then the rotation teachers, I think that to me is the most eye-opening, that when you have a group of teachers that are saying, I really don't enjoy teaching this, and that's who you have teaching the rotations, I think that really can impact the message and the lesson that the students get. I think everyone that we have teaching it is very, very professional, and I don't think they go around, exuding, it's not my favorite thing to teach, but I think it does still play a role in their enjoyment too. And then needing support, I had just asked that very generally. And this the colors are a little bit swapped this time, so most of the people felt like I don't need support to teach it. So it's independent of their need for support. Their feelings were independent of that. They felt like, yes, I can teach this. And there were a few that definitely felt like, yeah, I could use support. And sometimes it was more like, I could use another body in the room. It's a large group of students, anywhere from 19 to 22 students. Which especially when you're looking at kindergarten through second, that's a busy room. So.
So some of our considerations based on a lot of this information as we're planning for next year and thinking about our needs. Include our continued work to refine our MTSS process, including that enrichment piece, and making sure that we're meeting students' needs on that end. Really exploring what resources and opportunities we have to make an impact on chronic absenteeism. Because some of the traditional methods just don't seem to really have the same impact. And I think another piece to that is, families just since COVID too, it's a different lens. And then of course, as Maddie was just talking about, the HOM and SEL instruction, how can we improve that? And improve that for both the students and the staff teaching it. And then finally, through our professional learning community work, this is the time that teachers have on a regular basis to work with their grade level teams to focus on curriculum, assessment improvements, SEL, integration into their instruction. So those are our 4 things to be thinking about how we can improve the state of our school.
Great, thank you. Lots of deep dives and hard work, so I appreciate it very much. Questions or comments?
I'm just thinking about like the acceleration options and stuff and how those get distributed to, so like for one specific, so you said that the 5th grade, 2 of the classrooms are doing accelerated math. Does that do all students have access to those, or just you end up in those 2 classes?
It's grouped, the classrooms change.
So in the middle of the day.
Regrouping.
Yeah, so
They regroup.
by
for
data.
that. Yes. No, that's okay. No. So Wendy does a deep dive into NUIA data. And looking at those pieces, and actually Susan supports with that too. And the cohort, the 5th grade cohort, when they were in 4th grade, we noted very strong math skills there, and knowing that they needed even further differentiation. And
Remind me, I'm getting to be more than a decade since I had a kid at ASAP, but 5th grade is where they do the swapping between classrooms for different subjects, but 4th grade, they're still basically in a classroom for the one classroom.
generally speaking, they only do switching for math.
Okay,
And they do some switching for math in 4th grade, depending on what the cohort looks like and what it means.
okay,
It has changed somewhat over the years though, and I know there's, they sometimes have dialogue, and I think it in part depends on the teaching team. They have had teachers who maybe feel more passionate about social studies and science, and they're the ones that teach that subject, or ELA for that matter. But right now, it's where we are.
okay, I think that's what I was remembering, I think science used to be switched. Yep. Okay, any other questions?
I guess I have one, a sort of related question. I was trying to wrap my head around some of the data about IEPs versus economically disadvantaged. And I was just wondering if it's less, it looked like they're less likely to have an IEP if you're disadvantaged proportionally. But I'm just wondering if if there's like a snowplow parent effect of like, if students get more experience and like how you manage those sorts of like how you see that.
Yeah, and I don't think it actually ends up that way. I'd have to go back and look at that slide, but the slide was really the overlap between both of those. And looking at the data, I don't think it ended up being that way. In fact, often, and I don't mean this to be unique to Orono, but often the trend is the opposite, right? And you need to be careful that you're not over referring certain populations over other populations.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for what-
Yeah, I appreciate the different look at some new pieces.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, we've kind of done flavors of some of the past, but it's really nice to have a deep dive for each school in the spring. Yep. All right, next up, we have a vision for the ninth grade experience at OHS.
That was like, having very good, or?
Might just be easier for people who are listening to get
Actually, the
picked up on the
mic.
microphones.
I think we shared two ways with you, one more as a PDF and then one as
Yeah.
a Canva.
Join the party.
Are you ready? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight, to share the work that, we have been planning for and anticipating with respect to what it means to meet the needs of our students as they have evolved. You know, we hear over and over again about how those needs have evolved, and we are responding accordingly. And the work of our ninth grade teachers, over the past 18 months really has been about, how do we respond effectively? And so we're here tonight to share with you what that vision looks like. When we presented, last year, you can go to the next slide. You know, we began with this question, you know, what is the lived experience of our ninth graders? And, you know, this is something that if you ask any teacher anecdotally, they, you know, will likely have a different set of responses, but, there is a chorus to those responses that we have tried to reflect here. Our ninth graders reflect being afraid, of not belonging, of not, feeling connected. They want to feel connected and they want the attention of the adults in their lives. They want the positive attention of their peers, but they don't always know how to get it. We do have a population that, labels itself depending on where students come from, you know, whether they've come to us, up through Orono Middle School or from other communities. You know, that is a division that we try to heal, in a variety of different ways. And then there is, of course, the challenge of meeting high school for the first time and realizing that the expectations here are not the same as they were in middle school. And that looks differently for different students, depending on a wide variety of factors, all of which we navigate the consequences of on a daily basis. So reflecting on that as the reality, the lived reality that our students are experiencing, we have identified and held to some core goals around, you know, what our hope for a ninth grade project, you know, really looks like. And, you know, number one, connected to the, you know, discussions over the course of years by this board of directors, connected to so much of the work of our strategic plan, is the emphasis on all of our students having the right to feel safe and like they belong in our community, belief that connection to one another, and connection to this place is something that feeds well-being and thereby learning. We want our students to feel engaged, and we believe that a place-based and problem and solution-based framework is one way to do that. And then finally, we want our students to feel motivated. We want them to feel driven to develop deeper conceptual understandings. And we want them to understand the need for cultivating nuanced and transferable skills that will allow them to meet their changing reality at the pace at which it is evolving.
So we're coming to you today with a recommendation, and the we behind this recommendation is more than the three of us that you see sitting here tonight. You know, Shauna Goodall is on the Zoom meeting as well. She's been a key component. So has Dave Miller, Erica Dixon and Jeff as the four teachers who are primarily teaching ninth grade students and would be doing so again next year. We've also had help from Cora Sol, and she's a consultant that does a lot of place-based, project-based learning, and Renee Nooner from the Maine Solutionaries and the Institute for Humane Education. So a lot of thought has gone into this recommendation, and we have talked through several different ways this could work. And we feel that as a group, this is really exciting and also a bit nervous. Makes us a bit nervous because it is a change, but feel that this would be what's best for kids, not only in ninth grade, but would also fit into the OHS high school scheme well. So students in ninth grade would be divided into two groups, a maroon group and a white group. And I'm sure the kids will come up with better names for their groups once they get established. And those students would spend the first 2 blocks of time together on maroon days or white days. And in those 2 blocks of time, they would earn their science, English, and social studies credits. That would happen through some skill-based instruction that's very discipline-based as well, and integrated applied project-based instruction as well. That schedule of those 2 blocks of time for that core group of kids, we picture being divided as needed into 1 big block of time for possibly like a field trip to the Caribou Bog Outdoor Learning Center, or 3 blocks of time, one that's social studies, one that's science, one that's English language arts, for 2 periods of time, or gives a lot of flexibility as teachers are working with kids in different types of configurations. I think one of the things that Meredith mentioned when we were talking with the curriculum committee is, we sort of had to wait until the semester changed this year before making some adjustments to ninth grade classes that with some mixes of kids that didn't sit well together, right? And we can, with this format for next year, we can do that on the spot. Teachers could say pretty quickly to, hey, Noah, you can't be in class tomorrow with Kevin because it's just not working out. So we're going to do it this way, and have some immediate response to things happening. And on the other hand, too, immediate response to, hey, this kid really needs some extensive instruction right now so that they can be ready for the research project that they're working on. We're excited about that possibility. We also wanted to just highlight here that at least for the first couple of years, we have some great support through a partnership with the Penobscot Indian Natural Water Resources, or the Natural Resources has a water resources division. It's a pretty small but mighty group, I would say. And they have a grant through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation that was for a little while on hold, but they have been told now that they can go ahead and start spending that money in May. And so they've designated part of that to this project, as well as to help pay for Wabanaki Culture Shares. Bree Bowler is a Wabanaki educator and is lined up to do work with us to provide that perspective and aspect as well. Excited about that. Just thinking about this a little bit about what it would look like from the kids' aspect. So yes, students would receive 3 credits and 3 grades for their work done in those 2 class periods. Again, that's knowledge and skills, as well as application of those knowledge and skills in those 3 content areas. That means that our 9th grade students next year would have an additional block of time that they could choose to take a different class or add in a study hall. Our 9th grade students tend to be the grade level with the most classes on their docket, so to speak. So this would give them an opportunity to do some extension classes, something that they're passionate about, or have a study hall that maybe they didn't put in the past. We would continue to have students with advisors from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. Those advising groups would follow the kids all the way up. Our vision is that our 9th grade teachers would have some planning time rather than a study hall time, so that they could collaborate together in the afternoons. It would also be that our ninth grade teachers would not necessarily have an advisory group with the ninth grade teachers for the mornings, but would be able to work with their other classes during win-win and advisory times, or with their ninth grade students during those times. So trying to give some flexibility there. And, you know, really, we've learned and are continuing to learn. We heard a little bit today about the problems that the students identified through their solutionaries work in eighth grade. One of the things that we're really finding is with our traditional schedule, there just is not the time for teachers and students to work collaboratively through that kind of applying skills across those three disciplines and trying then to have groups of kids meet to work together on a problem that they're passionate about. Yeah. When the three of us were in a similar place about a year ago, maybe a little less than that, one of the questions and concerns board members rose was how are we going to address the needs of our students with advanced academic needs and learning styles. And we have developed an approach where we think that this offers the best of all worlds to the kids. AP Human Geography would still be available as a class students could take. It will be offered in the afternoon, so they could take that as an extra social studies class if they choose their ninth grade year. Earth and physical science, we would have an honors pathway available within the morning instructional time. Students would be clear with Jeff here around what the expectations are for honors work. There would be some specific honors instruction during some of those possibly win-win or advisory times so that kids that were working towards their honors designation for earth and physical science would have opportunity for that. And we'd also highly encourage those students to take the new proposed, if it goes forward, honors data literacy class, so that could help them in their advanced work and give them an opportunity to present their work either at the science fair for the state of Maine or their research symposium in the spring if they were second semester students taking that class. And in English, we're proposing that students would have the opportunity to portfolio into elective classes. So that students could will submit writing portfolio for evaluation at the end of the first semester, similar to what we have done this year and last year. And the high school teachers would evaluate those portfolios in the student writing, and then students could possibly have the opportunity to take elective classes sooner rather than wait until their 10th grade year or after XPOS halfway through the 10th grade year. That's how we're been thinking a lot about those advanced students. And although that's the title of this slide, I also want you to know that we're also thinking about our students with 504s and IEPs who may or may not also be advanced students or multilingual learners as well, and how to really build a team and work together as a team with our special ed teachers and other folks as well to support all of our students.
Primary drivers for this inquiry in the first place is a commitment to ensuring that our students see their learning as relevant and important and fueling of the kinds of skills that they will need to succeed once they graduate from Orono High School. And you know, one of those elements is bringing learning out of the classroom and before actual audiences to confront actual problems. And as we push into the community, one of the partnerships that is really key for this project is that with the Orono Land Trust and the Caribou Bog Outdoor Learning Center. So this is a location that I think reflects this community's commitment to the well-being of all. And part of that has been their generous willingness to partner with us and make the Caribou Bog Outdoor Learning Center an extension learning site for our ninth grade students. This site is also a facet of the funding structure for the America the Beautiful grant, with the hopes that we can be stewards of that land in a way that supports both conservation and restoration, elimination of invasive species, you know, while also looking at animal habitat, outdoor recreation, public access opportunities that even without focusing our solutionary learning around the Caribou Bog site, you know, we see student interest and projects and problem statements emerging around this idea of, you know, what it means to be able to access recreational opportunities, what it means to be able to say that the water that we are swimming in and living around is clean. And so that is one facet of how we think that the structure of the program can work. Built into the framework is the idea that each cohort, so the maroon cohort and the white cohort, would each take 10 field trips out to Caribou Bog over the course of the year. But, you know, one of the beauties of having a flexible schedule with flexible grouping is that, you know, those plans can evolve as, you know, opportunity and student interest presents itself. So as Susan mentioned, a facet of the launch of this project includes this funding support from the Keep America Beautiful, or the America the Beautiful Challenge grant that was secured by the Penobscot Nation's Water Resources Department. And two primary pools for leveraging that funding and service to this project include 2 years of funding support for Wabanaki educators and cultural knowledge sharers to partner with us. This is a project that is very much about, you know, the place that we live in and the place that we share, and helping restore it and keeping it an asset for our students and students in the future. And so partnership with the Penobscot Nation and Wabanaki cultural knowledge sharers is a key facet of that. Another element of the funding support that is key to this project is the creation of capacity for, this is the next slide, a part-time coordinator position. So we recognize that this kind of a pivot is not something that is going to magically fall into place without the really diligent persistence of a committed individual. And so we have, as part of this grant, funding built in to allow for a coordinator to have partial release time to support the learning planning and implementation of this project as it evolves. You know, as we planned it, it would you know, be connected to what it means to coordinate applied learning across disciplines, what it means to have community partnerships that are key to the work that students are doing, what it means to have field trips as a regular part of the schedule. But we anticipate that, you know, when, as often happens with projects that are truly student-centered, you know, what that position will require will evolve. And so there is time for that support built into this funding structure.
So we feel that this plan has some really great alignment with our strategic plan, particularly thinking about our vision of our learners and learners who are courageous, thriving, empowered, and globally aware. This brings many of those aspects into the learning experience for our 9th grade kids. We think that the aspect of safety, belonging, and well-being will be addressed for our students as well, but this also makes good sense for our students academically. And when we're thinking about what's success look like, how will we know when we've done a good job and the right job, you know, looking at things like our school climate survey and how our 9th grade students respond to that in the future compared to how they responded this year. Possibilities also include looking at attendance data and behavior data to see if some of those attendance issues may decrease as kids move forward in 9th grade, and behavior incidents may be decrease. Can also look at grades and NWA for reading and see if there's a different growth aspect there. And we're also thinking about some potential skills inventories where kids break their skills at the beginning, also do that in conjunction with teachers, and how that might look at the end of the school year. Also, wondering and thinking that maybe kids will develop a bit more confidence in trying some things that are different, and that might have an impact on the AP and honors courses that they choose to take in the future. So those are some possible ways we were thinking about measuring the success, but kind of open to, I think, ideas and suggestions from you all as the board as well. So what sort of measures might you be interested in seeing specifically there?
As I mentioned earlier, I met with the ninth grade, or members from the ninth grade team today to kind of check in on how our Solutionaries project is going. And they shared that they are seeing differences already. And this is something that Jeff would certainly be able to speak more precisely to, but when I asked about what kind of differences, Ms. Dixon shared with me a reflection written by a student that I just would like to share a little bit of with all of you. As we consider these quantitative measures, I think, part of really understanding the impact that meaningful learning can have for kids comes in qualitative ways as well. And this is a paragraph that was written by a student who is not an OMS student, so a student coming from one of the other towns that we serve. And the question that students were asked to answer was grappling with what they understand to mean, or what they understand the words to mean, and the question driving the work this semester, which is, does the quality of this place meet the needs of those who live here? So students were asked to consider, what does place mean, what is quality, and what are needs? And this student wrote, again, this is not an Orono student, or a student from Orono Middle School. Orono, this is a place that has a space in my heart. Some would say it is where they live or where they went to school. But for me, Orono means more than just a place on earth. It means a home, a place I truly feel welcome. Ever since I came to this place, before I came to this place, it felt like my life was on autopilot. Orono gave my life meaning. Orono makes me feel like I can be myself all the time, whether it is my friends or the community. If you get involved, then you will start to feel like you fit in. If you put in the effort, then you will have support through your own journey. This place is where I feel welcome. It is where I feel like I belong. It is where I feel like I have a purpose. This place is home.
So it's hard to follow that. So the timeline of sort of where a bit of where we've been, where we're going. We had an opportunity for a test run in the summer of 24 last summer that didn't pan out, but a different opportunity did arise for us through the Solutionaries work, and that's the framework that you've been hearing us talk about what the ninth grade kids are doing with their teachers this semester. I'd also encourage you, if you have a few minutes, I think it's 5-6 minutes long, there's a video linked in the text kind of write-up that has students' reflections who have gone through that Solutionaries project and what it's meant to them in their lives. So I encourage you to take a look at that. So we've really been using that framework to help explore some ideas and try to figure this out. And I've just been so amazed with the teachers' commitment to making this work for our kids, and then our kids' willingness to step out of some things that they feel comfortable with, and our teachers also to have some faith in the process. So that Solutionaries framework has really given us a lot to think about, and it's been neat to see that we weren't sure what kind of problem areas kids would come up with, but four areas right now, they're exploring problems in the terms of environment, sports, rec and leisure, community, and health and wellness. So where we thought they might go or where they're going, potholes was not on our minds when we were brainstorming in October and November about what this might look like for kids, but it's come up now. So it's also really shown us how the time constraints that we have right now are really barriers that the schedule just makes it almost impossible. But we're going some in-school field trips for a while to help make it so that the kids have time to work together and teachers have time to work with that larger group. So some of our next steps would definitely be a lot of communication with our rising ninth grade students and families here in Orono, as well as the term used here in the slide is our tributary schools. So schools that send kids to our high school. Making sure that school counselors and administrators and teachers have information about the plans for ninth grade next year. And community members as well. I think the Orono Land Trust and Penobscot Indian Nation, as well as just Orono residents, would be interested in knowing what we're trying and what's going on. We pictured that hopefully we could have an open house or some kind of event at the Orono Land Trust Garfield space as a way for starting to have community come together with those groups of kids that would be coming into ninth grade next school year. There's plans, teachers have marked their calendars for the very beginning of summer to do some work together. And I also anticipate that they will be spending some time as individuals beyond those 2 or 3 days that we'll be working together to help really reflect on the work and the Solutionaries project this year and get some of the details, schedule, how are we going to start this? What are the first field trips going to be? Those types of things in the early summer, and then start with kids in the fall. Do you want to explain the picture here?
So this was part of the project in thinking through the question of place at the beginning of the semester's work. And in Mr. Miller's class, students were asked to bring in photos that to them represent home. And now these photos are in a couple of collections of mosaics in the hallway by the English wing, and are part of the thinking that students are doing about, you know, what it means to consider their place in this world, their place in this community, and how we can work together to make sure that it's better meeting the needs of everyone.
So just to frame the conversation, and Meredith and I haven't had as much of a chance to sync as we might have, partly because of the presentation, the family presentation that happened right after curriculum committee, which I did go to and was great. You're right, the attendance was not as high as you might have hoped, but the attendees who walked away were very happy. So I do think word of mouth is going to continue on that. But so correct me if you're in a different place on this, but my understanding is it's been passed out by the curriculum committee to the board. It's in pretty urgent need of a thumbs up or thumbs down to proceed, given that it's such a big change to go ahead. And so I think we're headed towards a vote tonight on, you know, approving to go ahead next year or, you know, whatever alternative, saying we need more time or something like that. So that's the context, as we are actually looking
There's an
under,
agenda item down under action agenda, and you may decide just to do that at the end of your discussion.
yeah, right. So it's under discussion, but it's basically an action item. So we will, we'll move to a vote at some point. And by the same token, it's a long meeting, so by all means, ask questions, discuss, but you know, when you're at a point where you know how you're gonna vote, you know, it may be time to just go ahead and vote too, because we got lots of things to get to tonight, so.
In that case, I have a question that doesn't need to be answered tonight. Because I would say I'm in favor of it. I like the ideas of teaching across sort of siloed subjects, and like place-based and project-based. And it sounds like all the ninth graders get to experience this type of learning, not just folks in certain types of classes. I guess the thing I'd like to learn about eventually, but not maybe on a long meeting night, is future plans for the 10th grade, because it sounds like the ninth graders might have this awesome experience, and then the next year they just get dumped into the usual rigmarole of high school, which would be a huge letdown. So again, not important for my vote tonight, but at some point on a short night, if you wanted to elaborate, it'd be great.
Yeah, that's one of the, we took a visit to Telstar and in Bethel, and they have a very vibrant ninth grade program, and they kind of warned us that you need to just start thinking about 10th grade too. Yeah, kids will have high expectations, and yeah.
Please have some questions. So I mean, yeah, I'm really supportive of like moving in this direction. We talked about this last year. I guess it strikes me a little bit, this seems pretty scaled back from what we talked about last year, and maybe I'm misreading this, but when you talked, I thought it was like a half day Watershed Academy thing. We're gonna spend most of the time out at Carter Bog. And this sounds like 10 trips out there and 2 blocks, which how long is a block?
75 minutes.
So 150 minutes of, yeah, so I mean, I guess that's not time to get too deep into the field trip out there. But, am I reading this right? That it's a pretty like incrementalist change as opposed to like what you were talking about last year?
It is more of an incremental change, and I think, for field trip days, in addition to the 150 minutes, there is the potential for time for their advisory win-win and lunch too, so it could go all the way up until they, need to come back for their third and fourth, blocks in the day. I think,
So it essentially comes down to a half day every other day, versus a half day every day, which is what we talked about previously. And, it is, anytime a change like this is made, there are unintended consequences, like, waiting on the horizon that, we just can't foresee at this point. And I think that as we have kind of worked our way through the various models that Susan referenced, we have tried to identify something that can, be accommodated by our uniquely small faculty in a way that doesn't, at the start, disrupt the model that allows us to sustain what is really tremendously diverse programming, in spite of the intimate size of our faculty. And so one of the reasons that we are hopeful about this model being the best one for next year is that it essentially locks in 2 out of 8 blocks for each student, which maintains flexibility for the variety of other programming across the remaining 6 blocks. So the first half of every other day. For our teachers,
That wait, 2 out of, wait, how's that happen?
well, so I'm regretting not having like a visual of the
Maybe
schedule.
you get into detail.
So every student right now has 8 blocks in their
Over
schedule.
2 days.
over
Oh,
2 days.
okay.
Yeah, right, yeah.
4 blocks of maroon, 4 blocks away, 4 blocks maroon, 4 blocks away.
And so what this also does is for our faculty who are committed exclusively, or not almost exclusively to 9th grade, those faculty will have the first half of both maroon and white days focused on this program. But Erica Dixon and Dave Miller, each teach a combination of 9th grade and other grade levels. And so for them, they have a model similar to the students where only 2 of their blocks are locked in, and then they are flexible across their, the other 6 blocks. And so, our hope is that it maintains the system and allows us to, find where the opportunities are, capitalize on those, minimize negative impacts, and then do some learning and, figure out what the next best step is.
So again, yeah, that's sort of my question. Are you seeing this as like building to, like, this isn't a permit, like you're building up from this, or it's like, where do you see this in the hard code?
Well, I think with the pace of how things evolve, right? Like we think back 5 years and how different our lived reality now than it was 5 years ago. I think that it's hard to project too far into the future about anything because it's, we didn't know we would be talking about AI 2 years ago. And now it is such a fixture. And I was hearing from the English teachers today about the incredible presentations that they had about AI in the English classroom at a PD day last Friday. And so I think that, our hope is that we, with the trust of this board, take a shot at this model that has been engaged so thoughtfully by so many people over, the course of, at this point, really, it's over 2 years, I think, and see what it yields. And trust that the scale of this high school and the commitment of this community allow us to adapt accordingly based on what we learn. With the faith that we're going to be doing the best that we can. We're going to respond honestly to challenges. We're going to look to capitalize on opportunities and gains, and then keep trying to do better.
If I'm understood everything correctly, it sounds like funding wise, we're good for 2 years. what do you think, assuming this goes well over the first 2 years and it's something we decide to continue, what's the funding look after that as far as how much are we gonna have to pick up? What are the odds of getting, more grants and stuff like that? You know,
So, I think it's exciting to know that we have the 2 years, and the grant funds themselves, start in May and go for 4 years, but we don't think we need to front load things, I guess, so we can be successful the first year. And kind of to Noah's question too, I think this feels to us like something we can do well, across the school, not just for our ninth grade kids, but, depending on how this model works, at some point, the pieces that the district might need to pick up are renting of the Orono Land Trust Center at the Caribou Bog, but at some point, maybe there's a relationship there that they're used to us and we're used to them, but so we're not sure what that will look like, but the grant will actually fund that piece, we think, for 4 years. The coordinator position possibly could be built into a schedule of a full-time person without having that funding come from an outside entity. I'm hoping that the work with the Wabanaki Culture Shares really provide us over a 2-year time span, opportunity to develop curriculum and background knowledge and things that we need way less of than in the future, beyond those 2 years. And I also think that the grant helps us front load some of the equipment and supplies that we could be using with students. The numbers that are in the written document are not set in stone right now, and I want to be very upfront about that. Angie Reed, who is the primary person from the Penobscot Indian Nation Water Resources, and I have a meeting scheduled for April 8th, so coming up pretty soon. She needs to, we need to collaborate and work out some of the details, and some of the things are just a little bit unknown about how the money flows, and so I'm getting a little bit technical now, but in order for a coordinator position to be possibly continue to be a main retirement system position, then money may need to flow from the grant to the district to our folks, or if it's, and that costs more because then it's federal funds basically, and the state doesn't pick up 13%. So we need to get down to the details of what that really looks like for the first 2 years, and how I think that those funds can continue into the third year, but I can't promise that. We can't promise that at this point. We have to.
do we know, are there any other schools, high schools in the area who are in this model right now?
The only one that we know of is the one that we visited,
Telstar,
Telstar,
which is way
out of
Bethel.
Bethel. I don't know.
I don't know if any.
The reason I asked that question is, this has the ability to, you and I are on the same wavelength right now. Either boost our enrollment from sending towns, or if it's not good, sink it. So, yeah, I mean, it's something that could differentiate us for sending town students if it goes well and is perceived well. Which is part of what you talked about, Noah, with the ninth grade thing gets them here, right? And once they're here, they usually stay. That doesn't mean that it can't flow into other grades down the road, but it does get them here with the odds of. Sorry, Jeff, you were gonna say something.
I had a response to what you just said, Jake, and I'm still ruminating on the comment you made, Noah, so I might digress also. But the one characteristic that it's not completely applicable to all of the students from our sending towns, but the connection to natural spaces is distinctly different between most of the kids in Orono and most of the kids in our sending town. So I think any connection that we can make where our students are spending time in natural settings purposefully, I think it cannot be anything other than a draw for sending school kids. And if I may, can I return? I think the the answer I would give to, is this a stepping stone towards the thing that we had, the larger thing that we had presented previously? I think the larger version is still a passionate component of our hearts. It is for the teachers with whom I'm working closely. And the more we do it, the more we realize it feels like the right thing to be doing. So we continue to hope that some small number of years from now, we might have all the students off campus doing the version that you heard last spring. But one of the comments the board made last spring after our presentation then was to pose questions associated with what's the impact on the rest of the schedule? So if I were to just sort of pigeonhole your focus for a minute, we have a very rigid schedule in our school day, and to do anything that disrupts that for more than the teachers who just teach ninth grade becomes a really big problem to solve. And that's expensive. This version that we're proposing to pilot beginning this fall almost entirely works within the existing schedule just by creating some flexibility in the mornings. And we have the opportunity to access external funding to launch the thing. In the longer term, a bigger version would probably require external funding also.
I mean, just to make the schedule concrete, right? You got a kid, they're gonna get their English, social studies and science out of this, but they still need a math class. Right? They may want to take AP Hugo. They may want to take band or choir or orchestra. So that's 3 out of the 4 remaining blocks right there.
Health,
So
PE.
and PE, yeah, PE health,
World language.
right? So the
World
4
language.
blocks. Yeah, so I mean, walk before you run it is how I look at it.
I guess that's sort of related, maybe just a branding question, but is the name, which it was Watershed Academy last year, and was that reserved for the bigger thing? I like that as a marketing. The ninth grade academy, it just sounds like ninth grade academy. So I just wonder about that.
I think Meredith and I are laughing a little bit because we're like, yeah, we've been thinking about the name too, and we kind of took off of the slides that had the watershed area. We're kind of interested in maybe learning what the students want to call it at the end of their experience or towards the end of their experience, because we haven't found necessarily anything that felt right in all situations and all areas, I guess, for all people, but
Yeah.
and we thought that maybe Watershed Academy is too different at this point for some folks.
I don't
But
know.
sure.
I guess
There's also some summertime debate about the appropriateness of watershed versus basin.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, I just think like from Mark sending out recruiting, like it just feels like having a little more sexy name like that, just like. Oh, that's my feeling, but I don't know if it hurts the program internally, but
The names of things matter.
yeah. So I think
It's worth consideration for sure. Well, it has been in consideration.
Yeah, if watershed or basin or outdoors, doesn't make it into the title, maybe it should make it into the subtitle. I think that was right, that is it's a central idea and it's a central appeal, I think, to the program. I'll just briefly, I grilled Meredith for an hour at the curriculum committee meeting, so I thank you. I see most of my feedback already incorporated in the detailed backup slides. So I'll just say I'm in support of it. I got to see the superintendent from Telstar present a couple times at MSMA, and I walked out of those presentations thinking, wow, we should do that in Orono. I also saw the superintendent of the Katahdin district, I think it's RSU 89, who's now the superintendent of Bangor, presenting on their outdoor education program, and also walked out of that saying, wow, I think we should have that at Orono. As I've said, I also do outdoor teaching since I teach ecology, and I observe the difference in students between a lecture and outdoor experience. So I'm broadly supportive of it. In my mind, it's what in the academic grant world we call high risk, high reward. K-12 educators often don't like high risk, high reward, which I get because it's kids, but I think the risks are mostly, teacher risks of maybe having put in a little last minute work when things are half baked, or the board having to take a little flack when something isn't quite planned out. I don't think the risk for the kids is very high, and I think the reward for the kids is extremely high. I also just think education needs to be innovative. We're not in a stasis kind of world. We're not in a place where the kids need the same thing they needed 5 years ago. This is the conversation over and over and over again. So I fully support, even though we'll have a component that feels like building the airplane while we're flying it. I think that's unavoidable. I also, quite frankly, think maybe that's on the board a bit for not having put the resources into the planning. That's just how education works, is the planning time is not very high. So unless there's specific resources into planning, there's not a lot of planning time. So I think the board has to own that piece a little bit. So I'm fully supportive of it. Sometime I would love to see a mapping between our strategic plan and what this program addresses. And I think it addresses all 6 points, but I'd just like to see that point made clearly.
We had some rich discussion about how to represent that in the printed document that accompanies the slideshow. And one of the challenges, I think, is that when you are stepping into a new space with a new idea that is plotted against current existing needs, but without a clear prescription of how those needs will remain the same as the project unfolds, it's hard to know exactly what those impacts are going to be. And so that's how we landed on the page in the document that articulates elements of the vision of a learner. Because in thinking it through, Susan and I could see all of these ways that this project potentially actualizes what this vision imagines for our students. But without a year or 2 or 3 to reflect on and document, it's hard to say exactly how. We also felt like, to be frank, our choice to talk about the vision of a learner felt easier to get our arms around within the context of a big presentation on an already full board meeting night versus the 6 goals. But I think that in any conversation that I've had about the relationship between this project and the plan, it does not take much imagination for folks to begin to see the strands of the web or the layers of the work and how they're connected. And I think that it would be a fantastic opportunity to be, documenting that as we go, so that we can reflect in a way that is truly framed by the priorities that we have set for ourselves.
Yeah, partly I think it's important for the project, but I also think partly it's important for the strategic plan for people to see that there's a connection and an action happening. And certainly the portrait of a learner is a piece of that, but I think the big 6 goals, right? Student engagement is clearly here, multiple pathways is clearly here.
Community connection.
Yeah, the community connections, the well-being, right, the pieces, the grit are all here. That was the one other piece of feedback I would have is I saw the success factors, which, thank you, that was helpful to see. I do think and these may not be student assessed, but teacher assessed, but some more things towards goal 2 and goal 3. Right, the student resilience pieces and the multiple pathways. Multiple pathways is kind of explicit that you're structuring it that way, but I'd be curious to see some reflection on those too. But also I know 2 administrators have put a lot of time into this. I know a lot of teachers have put a lot of time into this, but I just wanted to say thank you, Jeff. I know this is your passion project, and you've been the person who's kept this going forward through setbacks, and I'm sure if it succeeds, you're going to be a big part of why it succeeds. So I just wanted to say thank you, Jeff. Anything else before we go ahead and take a vote? Yeah, go ahead.
So and just to go to the sort of pre-semester summer thing isn't happening, because that was a specific grant and was like, there's no near-term opportunity. But potentially we could in the future. Just with I guess I'll just say one more time, the watershed again. I mean, like, the thing that I love about it is like the multiple meanings, like watershed moment in the student kid's life, and like all the metaphors and other words that are like that, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. I just want that.
I'm flattered that you remember the exact slide that.
That's good, it's like all the things, like, I moment and become. Anyways. I'm ready to vote.
Ready to vote. And I'll just say, I do think communication with the community ASAP. I saw the communication plan, but we don't want this to come as a shock over the summer. I've seen curriculum rolled out over the summer before, and it's not a good thing because all gets handled through the gossip mill instead of conversations with staff. And so getting that out so people have a chance to come talk to staff about their concerns is, I think, super critical. All right, ready to vote? I would make a motion to approve the proceeding for next year with the ninth grade experience as presented at the Orono High School. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion or further questions? We'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? So the motion carries 4-1. So looks like we're going ahead. Thank you for the hard work.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next up is the budget. Oh, and Connor, you're welcome at any point you want to feel out, but you're also welcome to stay.
I put the same documents that we looked at last time in the folder because we don't have substantially different information at this time. As you recall, the biggest unknown that we have remaining is the insurance question. And we have not received the first of 2 milestones with that, which is expected by this Friday, which is the ceiling rate increase. We were hoping they would be early and we would have that to be able to share with you tonight. We do not. So that's the big one. And when we'll have something in our next meeting to talk about. We're hopeful that they'll come in early on the final rate. Sometimes they do that. They wait till the very deadline on the ceiling. And then we get the final rate earlier than expected. The final rate is not expected. The date they set for that is April 11th, which is 3 days after our next meeting. But we'll have a ceiling. And even if we didn't get it till the 11th, you don't have to make final decisions until the 29th. When you take a vote that tells us what to build on warrants. So the only a couple of new things I put in your packet. It's what Noah held up earlier. It looks like a table. It looked like that other table. That's the capital improvement plan update. It's just the 2026 list. We did get an updated number on our high school bathroom project from the contractor. And so that figure has been updated now. It increased a little because our design changed, needed kind of more substantial stalls to have a more open concept. So we have the list kind of as it stands now. As we mentioned last meeting, part of our bathroom redo and addressing some concerns that are coming out of the high school is to look at some vape detection systems. Actually, you called it something else.
Safety sensors.
Safety sensors, sorry. Safety sensors that are for vape and some other.
Yeah, loud noises,
Okay.
TikTok phrases that tend to be a hot one in bathrooms that has intelligence to realize those.
Yeah, so like that would indicate large gatherings happening.
Loud noises.
So just as, you know, we've talked at several junctures over the past couple of years about bathrooms being a point of concern for safety and raised in some of our survey work. And I think some of our student advisors even gave kind of some specific instances of their, you know, what they hear and their experiences. So we're doing some research right now and talking to, you know, schools who have these. They're quite common actually in schools now. And we'd like to reserve that remaining amount to have some flexibility in there to bring you a recommendation on that if we get to the point of feeling like we have enough of a kind of a research. We have a couple of test items they've sent us to try out on a, very controlled basis just to see how they work, what the functionality is. So that's one piece. I think the highest end would take probably everything that's left, but there are also some lower cost items. We just want to make sure we're getting something that's going to work as hoped for. But we feel like this list will accomplish, as we looked at the larger plan last meeting, it really makes it feel like we're knocking items off the list, even though the list grows, right? Every year, it does feel like we'll be making significant headway. And as we kind of talked about, I think in the very near future, once we get the word this summer about the middle school construction application, I think we'll need to have some discussion based on that about our priorities for the next couple of years. So we can kind of reserve that discussion for there, but this project in this space is probably if we don't get a favorable rating on the middle school, this is a space that's going to take every bit of 1 year's allocation to be able to do. So those are kind of deferred conversations though, after we get that middle school application answer. Any questions about capital improvement? Anything to add to that, Derek?
We received the sensor today. Meredith kind of pulled the reins back. She's like, don't install it today. That's not enough time to get some data on that. So we'll certainly have some data by next round on that device. So looking forward to that.
Any questions about capital improvement? So just a few things about budget. Lynn got an update for us today on where 9th grade enrollment stands. That's kind of the other piece we monitor this time of year that's not exactly final when we start this work, but evolves over time. She built the budget based on 22 students. We're at 21. So in the neighborhood, feeling positive about that. So, I think we'll probably make a decision by next meeting if we feel like we need to roll that back in any way or not. One of the other areas that is a new kind of opportunity for us is a workforce development grant that Rebecca Cross brought to us as an opportunity to help support and fund district professional development and coursework costs for staff. She learned about this from Old Town, actually does this, has been doing it for several years. And it's a way for us to realize some extra revenue to offset some of our costs. It's a little hard for Lynn and I to figure out how to forecast some revenue because we talked to Old Town and what they are seeing is actually lower than what we imagine we might be able to recover, but we feel like we want to start conservatively. So we feel like we can add in about $10,000 in extra revenue from that workforce development grant. It's a kind of after the fact reimbursement that we have to enter the activity into their system prior to it starting, like the professional development training or the course. And then at the end, the staff member that's been involved has to complete a short survey. So once that survey is done, then that's when we get the funds. And it's up to $1,200 per staff member that can be funded for professional learning. But you only get 50% of each activity. So if you take a class at university, it costs around $1,900. So we might get $800 or $950 for a course at the university if someone goes to the point of doing the survey. So that's one element that by the next version of this, we'll probably have a line item under revenue to add that. The last thing, I guess, I want to provide you with just an idea that we're talking about. It's been building for some time, us thinking about the needs at our high school around student behavior and supporting student needs in that way. And so, in the past couple of weeks, and really there was some good discussion at the high school meeting as they were debriefing the Lynn Lyons talk about student needs. And one of the things that we think could be helpful is to have a person that can add more support to behavior intervention and monitoring. So we're imagining an ed tech will have, you know, a skill set that would be not every person has the skill set to be a behavior interventionist. So we're looking for people who would have that kind of skill set. We probably also try to do some training around that individual, and also be the presence around the school to add an extra presence. And I think that is also responsive to just what we've been seeing in some survey feedback that you've seen, we've seen, and just what, you know, staff is talking about in terms of needs. Our student data has changed on what we're seeing from both kind of IEP and 504 type of behavior needs, but also just general differences in student behavior and response to you know, the norms of school in our students. And so we think that this would be helpful for kind of the climate and also the idea of the feeling of safety at the school. So that price tag it depends on the individual, but we estimate it to be just under $50,000 for an ed tech with the benefits and all. So that's something that I just wanted to put out there. I'm hesitant to certainly to add a position when we're at a time when we're talking about having to reduce a different position, but these are really different needs we're talking about. And so that's something that I think fills a need. And then talking with Meredith and Sam, I think we feel like it can help help the high school team. So that's the only other thing that we've been talking about. No new revelations have come to us about the pot of gold or the great idea for efficiency. So the list of reduction ideas that you have, the list of one-time expenditures remains the same.
So the 459 increase does not include the savings on the rainbow page. Correct?
Correct.
And it would not include the extra 50,000 for that position.
Correct. We didn't update the, you know, the other documents anyway.
I'm trying to, we have the meeting April 8th, and that's normally when we say we kind of have to finalize the budget because you got to send the warrants out to a lawyer, but we have until the April 29th meeting.
That's the meeting where we vote. You kind of, on the 8th, usually give us some strong indication about what you'd like us to bring back for you to do a kind of a final check-in and vote. The problem is going to be the insurance. And so it's going to potentially, if we don't have that information prior to our meeting on the 8th, be more compressed decision-making into that one meeting.
But we could still add 50 or take 50 away.
Oh, sure. The
April 29th
warrants aren't
meeting.
until the next meeting after that.
The March meeting.
Yeah.
May meeting, yeah. Okay, I mean, so I think the decision points are pretty clear, right? It's everything on this page and it's how much to take, plus the new position, plus how much to take out of unassigned. Do you know that we need to discuss it? Anybody want to discuss anything tonight, or should we just wait until some of the dust settles on insurance and discuss it at the next meeting?
Nothing's really changed. So
Yeah.
I don't know that we get anywhere different than everyone
Yeah.
else.
Okay.
Agreed.
Any feedback, thoughts on the ed tech behavior interventionist monitor at the high school?
I'd be in support of it. I know it's a position added, but I just have heard too many different directions and too many different sources that that's an ongoing need at the high school.
Any other thoughts?
Wait for more information.
Yep. So that's all about budget.
Okay. Next up, I don't think we have any co-curriculars.
I don't think so.
I didn't see any.
We already took care of B, so we're on to policies. So GAI is coming forward. I think we talked about this last time. This has been through a pretty robust process with the technology committee, and Susan pulled together comments from the technology committee. It's been through the policy committee. Bottom line is we've mostly just cleaned up some language and made some things more clear and more plain. The other big difference is just the ages. We really had this vision for a while there. ChatGPT and some others were accessible to 13-year-olds, and they've all changed to 18-year-olds without parent permission. And of course, the logistics of getting parent permission for all 350 kids at the high school. And the downside of, some kids are allowed to use it and some kids aren't allowed to use it if we don't get parent permissions. So we've kind of updated things with respect to the current state of age. Some specific software that we can provide goes to younger ages. So the age section is the biggest change, and it's just reflecting the current realities on the ground. The rest is mostly cleaning up language. Susan or Meredith, anything you'd add to that?
No, I don't think so. The highlights there or things that people were wondering about as we're trying to implement those guidelines.
Yeah, it's really mostly just clarity. It's not like actually changing policies or requirements. This being a guideline document, we don't normally expect teachers to go and read policies all the time, but this is really intended to be more something that's accessible for informational communication. So we've worked on clarity. All right, I would make a motion to approve. This is a guideline, not a policy, and it's a revision. So I would make a motion to approve the generative AI guidelines as presented tonight. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Passes 5-0. Subcommittee reports. You see the output from the last policy subcommittee meeting. I guess we've got one coming up in about a week and a half. The first Thursday of April. Anything from UTC?
We have a meeting next week. Thanks for Meredith for bringing news. Do you have something?
It's something I just thought of.
Okay.
But, we're going to, hopefully next meeting, they'll have it just by then, need to have an agenda item about the collective agreement for UTC. The name is out of my brain right now, but we have to update our agreement that all districts have to sign and agree to. And so I'll be bringing that as soon as I get it, hopefully next meeting. One of the key things is the change around credits and how many credits are being awarded that are in the agreement.
We haven't talked about that during the meeting, so I wonder if they'll bring it up next week.
Probably this next meeting we're going to.
Curriculum subcommittee met, I think it was last week. There were a ton of things on the agenda due to a previous one canceled by snow. We did not get to any of the course approvals. The 9th grade academy was the higher priority and took the whole hour and a half plus. So that was the whole meeting. And you saw the output here. Wellness committee, probably you met since last board meeting. Meet tomorrow. Great. Okay. Strategic plan leadership, I don't think has met since the last board meeting.
We meet Thursday.
Yeah. So that's it for reports. Any other business? Any requests for future agenda items? The floor is open for public comment. I see Shauna. Go ahead.
I should have done this at the first one, but I don't know what I was doing. I'm Shauna Goodall. I'm the co-coach of the Orono High School quiz team. And I would like to encourage all of you this Thursday night at 8 o'clock to tune into Maine Public Broadcasting to watch your Red Riots take on the Shipbuilders of Morse. That's all I can really say. But we had a ton of fun this year on High School Quiz Show. We might have done well, we might not have done well, but we made it all back in one piece after some interesting drives to Lewiston. And just watch, you'll be surprised. Or maybe not, because I can't really tell you anything. But
Okay, you have a non-disclosure
Remember,
going, so the televises, right?
yeah, so it's this Thursday at 8 o'clock on Maine Public Broadcasting. And then the show goes all the way to May 29th on Thursday nights and streaming. So spread the word.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, the next board meeting is April 8th at 6 o'clock in the library and on Zoom. Is there any request for information or follow-up? Seeing none, I would make a motion to go into executive session under 1 MRSA 4056A superintendent contract. We may or may not take a vote afterwards, so I can't make a guarantee about that. And is there a second for the executive session?
My second.
Any discussion on the executive session? All those in favor? Passes 5-0. We will go into executive session. Obviously, anybody who doesn't want to hang around to watch us take 1 or 2 votes is welcome to leave. So.
Mine on here. I got my audio on.
So I put my sound on this machine.
Okay, I'll turn this off.
Okay, I think I can log in pretty quickly. So
I've got it here.
Just be loud.
I think this can see everyone, so it's fine. And Noah.
That's fine. All right, so we come out of executive session at 9:51. Mark, do you have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to authorize Brian McGill as board chair to renegotiate superintendent contract in line with the parameters discussed in executive session.
Is there a second? I second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Passes 5-0. Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Passes 5-0. We're adjourned at 9:52.